100.3 FM, Little Rock, the voice of the people.
The mission of KABF is to inform, empower, and engage our listening audience to take action that serves the immediate needs and the common good of our diverse community. We create a platform for diverse cultures and groups to share their music, interests, and concerns. We cover news and information that impacts directly on the lives of underrepresented members of the community. We provide a voice for youth and individuals.
Okay, Chilliam.
Like a broader community. And we offer public affairs and education programs to address the health and well-being of the community. KABF, the voice of the people.
The ACLU of Arkansas predicts that President-elect Donald Trump follows through with his campaign promise of mass deportations. It would have serious effects on the state's economy. The president-elect has said on day one of his new term in office, he will launch the largest deportation program in American history. Sarah Everett with the ACLU of Arkansas says industries such as Tyson Foods and many local farmers rely on the immigrant population to operate.
So we're certainly talking about rise in grocery costs, and what we've seen in previous upticks in deportation has been inflation as well as labor costs. When restaurants have to shut down because they can't find enough employees, the employees who aren't deported lose out too.
She adds immigrants have protection under the 4th, 5th, and 14th Amendments to the Constitution. The Migration Policy Institute estimates there are 58,000 undocumented people living in Arkansas. The ACLU is advising people who are legal immigrants to have a plan in place in case they are detained. Individuals are encouraged to carry their paperwork with them, establish a relationship with an immigration attorney. Everett says now that the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, or DACA program, is suspended, many young people don't have any protection.
When it comes to racial profiling, we want to hear from people. If students' rights are affected, all students have a right to a public education regardless of their immigration status. And then if people are being harassed or mistreated by law enforcement, we want to hear about that too.
She says the ACLU has also created a petition asking Congress to cut funding to the Department of Homeland Security to prevent soon-to-be President Trump from having access to the resources he needs to carry out mass deportation plans. The petition is online at action.aclu.org. I'm Freya Ross, Arkansas News Service. Find our trust indicators at publicnewsservice.org.
Craving bold, authentic African flavors? There's no other than Afro Rice. Serving up delicious dishes like jollof rice, spicy suya chicken, flavorful jerk chicken, tender lamb, and more. Don't forget our crowd favorite spicy plantains and curly cabbage. Plus plenty of vegan options too. Afro Rice has 2 convenient locations, 1702 Wright Avenue in Little Rock and 1915 Park Ryder Street in Conway. They are open daily from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. Order now for delivery or pick up through DoorDash or give us a call at 501-483-8721. Follow Afrolife on Facebook and Instagram for the latest specials. Afrolife, where African flavor meets Arkansas.
That's just the way it is. Gonna be the same. Things will never be the same. That's just the way it is. Okay,
Let's change the way we eat. Let's change the way we live. And let's change the way we treat each other. You see, the old way wasn't working, so it's on us to do what we got to survive. And still I see no changes. Get a brother, get a little peace. There's war on the streets and a war in the Middle East. Still a war on poverty. They got a war on drugs so the police can bother me. If I ain't never been wrong, I ain't have to do that.
That's just the way it is. Things will never be the same. That's just the way it is. Oh, yeah. Yes, we're coming in hot with Tupac this morning. Saying changes. We got to do some changes. We got to make some changes. The political activist Tupac is telling us that. We're going to be talking about that a little more. But right now, just want to welcome you to Community Voices, where we are live right here at KABF 88.3 FM, where we are the voice of the people. I am your host, the Reverend Doctor. You can call me Denise. And in studio, of course, is your co-host, the Pastor.
Well,
Toney Orr is in the house. We do have a special guest. We'll wait for her to get her technology together. She'll be up in just a minute. Tony, you might have to help be up there in just a minute because you want to hear this conversation. Thank you all so much for being here. I see you already, Hotep. I see you already, Mayor Lisa Hicks Gilbert. Good morning to you, Grand Rising to you. So glad that you are joining us on this day. So I want to make sure that you know how grateful we are for your presence in this space. We realize and we recognize that had it not been for, if it were not for you being here, showing up every time you show up in these 24 hours, 7 days a week of programming where we want to educate, we want to inform, we want to enlighten. We are only here because of you. All of the ways that you support us, supporting us with your finances, yes, that is important, but we want you to know that you are more than that to us. The way that you show up with your voices, the way that you show up with your pushback, the way you show up with your challenges, the way you show up with your suggestions, the way that you show up with everything that you do, we are so appreciative and we are glad that you are here on this day. I do want you to know that we have a special guest in the house. We're going to be talking about political equity. It is a great conversation for us to have, so don't touch that dial. But I do want to also get us started with our EJI tidbit. I'm grounding us in the conversation with Tupac, yes, and I always do that. I find a song that helps us have the conversation, helps us move the conversation forward. And sometimes I think that part of this conversation is going to be about how we have a tendency to put people in a box, particularly Black folks. And so we talk about in this show, we always center Blackness, but we center Blackness in the context of the human story, because the human story includes all of the populations of people that live amongst us, including Black folks. And so we center Black folks in this space. And so we're going to be talking about the importance of not thinking that just because you perceive a person to be a certain race or a certain ethnicity or a certain whatever, that whatever your stereotypes, whatever your programming, whatever your conditioning, whatever your lived experiences are that shape what you think about that identity, we need to start checking them, because you don't know a person until you know the person, and you don't get to know the person until you begin to share stories with the person, until you begin to develop a relationship with the person, until you are breaking bread with the person. You don't know anything about that. And so this idea that we think we have about people based on identity, how is that affecting our relationships, and how is that keeping us from being like Tupac is asking us to be, ready to make changes, ready to realize that when I'm looking at you, I can't allow, if we are close in relationship, how can the devil get to you if you're my brother, if you're my sister, if you're my gender non-conforming neighbor? How is the world able to pull us apart if we are close together in relationship? And so we're going to be talking about that today. And then I want to ground that also in the EJI tidbit. So for those of you who are interested in the calendars are now ready for next year. They're already ready. If you want to order them, you can. I've already ordered a couple of them, so I'll have a few extras. So if anybody, I need you to put on mute and turn the volume down. If anybody is having, I'll have a couple of extra if you want. But if you want to go onto the website, eji.org, you can absolutely order your own. I think are you on mute on your phone?
Yes.
And is your volume all the way down?
Yes.
Okay, so if you could put a phone over this way, and I think it's maybe too close to Tony's. That might be wise, making more noise. And then make sure you can see yourself in there, because if you can see yourself, then we can see you. Okay. Yeah. You want me to
Yeah.
Yeah, that might be the same because so y'all might have the same camera. We're just trying to get the technology worked out in the room. Yeah, we're just trying to get the technology worked out in the room.
You're getting feedback.
Yeah, just go ahead and leave the studio. Yeah, okay. So you see everybody, y'all see Tony, y'all see Pat Ward in the house. Woo, 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 woo. When I see your name on Facebook, it's like Bureau Chief, and then sometimes I call you former mayor, and then sometimes I call you Pat. And so now that you are on the screen and we can see you and we got the technology worked out, I do want to make sure that you all know who the special guest is, a special community voice in the house today, Pat Ward. Let us know that you're in the house. Tell us something about yourself.
Who, me?
Yeah.
Well, I'm just me. Hailed from Chicago.
Woo, woo. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I really grew up in Hensley, Arkansas, with my grandparents from about 4 years old until about 26. I went back to Chicago. That's where I got involved with business development and politics.
Mm-hmm.
And while in Chicago, I was an elected ward official. I was an appointed congressional district official. I worked with the National Republican Party to do training and recruiting minorities to run for office. We did, I did campaign management, all of that. And then I also did housing development. We developed probably about 500 units of apartments on the west side of Chicago. West Point Plaza is one of the projects we did. And it was Section 8 housing. And we put together a partnership between for-profit and not-for-profit entities. And in Illinois, when you do that, the Illinois Department of Finance Authority will advance the nonprofit money to hire consultants, architects, and everything they need for the infrastructure of the project. And we put those packages together, get them funded through HUD, and that's how I got my housing development experience and my business development experience I got from the School of Hard Knocks. And so I did my own first SBA loan. I did that once word got out, people were coming to me, so I started doing consulting, putting together SBA loans or grants and writing grants and business plans for clients. And that's how I got that experience.
Well, look, we're going to be here all day if you tell us all the experience that you have.
Exactly.
We're going to stop you you
we
right
have
there.
to go into a couple of weeks or something.
Yeah.
Like that. So I don't want to go that far.
Yeah, but you brought all of that experience here. So I think that we can say that. So you brought all of that experience with you when you came back to Arkansas. You said you were born here, you went to Chicago, and then you're back. And so you have all of this experience. And this is one of the reasons that we know you for who you are. And I could not think of a better person to have this conversation with in terms of political equity than you. And so I'm so glad that you said yes. I'm so glad that you are here. I cannot wait to get into the conversation, but I realized I didn't ask Toney to greet y'all this morning. So Toney, do you have a greeting for us? Say something.
Hey, good morning. Yeah, that was
That was real. Goodness.
I got to do that because I'm jet lagged. I'm jet lagged.
Oh.
Yeah. So you know, how those artists say, you know, when they introduce some artists, they say, you know, direct from a 3-week engagement somewhere.
Yeah. So you're direct from where?
So I'm a direct from a 3-week engagement in the Netherlands.
Oh my goodness.
You know, but the great thing, you know, and I'm glad that Denise, she brought that Tupac song out because I was in an Uber and I want to say the Netherlands or one place, and they were playing Tupac, and you know, to go somewhere else and to see different things, you know, but
in other countries.
Yeah, but then when you get back, you know, you're reminded some things never change. You know, the minute Tupac is just reminding me that, you know, I don't care where you been, what you did, where you go. When you get back, when you land back into this place called the United States, you know, it's some things you got to, you know, you got to face. It's some realities you got to face. It's some things that you got to look at, you know, and some things you have to address. So thank you for that song, Denise, you know, because sometimes we have to be regrounded in where you are and to remind us of where you are.
I want to actually say a shout out to my friend Tamara because she's the one who hooked me up to Tupac's song. I actually had never heard it before, and she shared it with me. So I want to say thank you. A special shout out to Tamara for introducing me to the song. A lot of you all do that. You send me information, you send me articles, you send me music, you send me YouTube videos, you send me all kinds of things, and I really appreciate it so much. Like Ryan Davis, you sent me some books. I appreciate all that you do to help me have these conversations. Hotep is already on the line saying politics is a sum numbers environment. You're going to have to say more about that because I'm not sure what that means. Politics is a sum numbers environment. But I do want to get us grounded in our EJI tidbit for today. Again, the calendars are ready for next year. You can go to eji.org and you can order your calendar. They are $5 a piece. You can get them in a bundle you can get 5 at a time. Yeah. And then it's $5 to ship them. So I'm trying to give you all the information you need. Or you can simply put in your email address and it is free. They will send you not just the tidbit, they will send you even more than what's on the calendar, information about the history of racial injustice in our country. I think it's just in our country. I don't think it's all across the world what they do on their calendar. I think it's just for this country. And so you don't have to pay for anything. And I've already ordered a couple of extras. If you want a calendar, I will have one for you as soon as they come in. They are yet on their way. So I do think that these conversations are important to have. This information is important to have, and it is readily available at your fingertips. So here is Lo helping me understand what he says. Majority wins 50% plus one of the total votes cast. Oh, okay. Yeah. And so 50% plus one of the total votes cast. This is how we win. This is how you win when you're running for office. Not for the president, though, because that has to do with the Electoral College. But just generally speaking, if you're running for an election. Gotcha. So here we are on November 24th. I realize that today is the 26th, but I always choose the tidbit based on the conversation. On November 24th in 1920, a mob of white people in DeWitt, Georgia, lynches Curly McKelvey, a black man, after mistaking him for his brother who had been accused in the killing the previous day. On November 24th, 1920, a mob of white people in DeWitt, Georgia, lynches Curly McKelvey, a black man, after mistaking him for his brother who had been accused in the killing the previous day. And so I thought this particular tidbit was important because of how we look at each other and how we are conditioned to believe that we think we know everything we need to know once we categorize a person based on the identity. So this man is black. So just because he's a black man, he must be any black man. Like, as long as we find a black man, it's okay. So I don't have to know exactly who the Black person is. All I have to do is see Black, think about what I perceive Blackness to be, and say it's okay for me to treat this person however I want to treat them based on this identity. And we have a tendency to do that. We lump people into a category. In particular, today we're talking about Blackness. And because of the way the world treats Blackness, and we are programmed by the world, we treat that person that way without taking the time to get to know the person, to have a conversation with the person, to even honor the humanity of the person that says, at least let me know your name. They done killed a man, don't even know who he is. And so we are killing each other with the way that we are voting, the way that we are talking, the way that we are not voting, the way that we are having conversations, the way we're not. Like we're doing all kinds of harm and trauma to each other because we are taking it for granted what we think we know about a person rather than having and developing a real authentic relationship. I'm laughing because Bureau Chief Pat Ward done wrote on the board. Now you was on the air, you can just talk. She done wrote. It's a pleasure to be here. So let me post it for the people. You see the Pat Ward to chime in. And so when I thought about this, can I call you Pat today? Is that okay?
You can call me anything but late for food.
Because you ain't gonna never be late for food.
Yeah. Of course. Everybody calls me Pat.
Okay, I wanted to make sure. I just wanted to make sure. I appreciate that. And so, Pat, when I was thinking about this conversation, because as it was leading up to the election, I found myself in lots of conversations, particularly with Black people, but with all people, about how devastating it is to be in relationship with a person, start having conversation, and then realize as part of the conversation that you are diametrically opposed as it relates to politics. And so once we find out that you're a Republican, or once we find out that you're a Democrat, or once we find out that you voted for Trump, or once we found out that you did not vote for Obama, that changes how we see you. In that moment, I mean, in a blink of an eye, I have seen conversations go all the way to the left. I'm talking about people ready to fight, people walking out, people severing relationships, all because they find out that this person does not share the same views that they have politically. And so then the conversation shifted to this idea that if you're Black, you're supposed to be Democrat. So now if I'm Black and I'm a Republican, now you're mad. And so I said, wait a minute. I really think that this will be a great conversation to have with Pat, because actually we are diametrically opposed as it relates to our politics on the face of them. Like when you think about, I grew up in a household where, I actually grew up in a household where you could be whatever you want to be, but I have primarily voted Democrat. And when we think about the work that you do, and we know that you are a Republican, and you are, you're not ashamed of that, and you have people on like French Hill on your show, like stuff, you do stuff that I would not do in the way that you do it. I would have French Hill on my show, but I'd be challenging him. I mean, I'd be coming for him every step of the way. Whereas you have him on, you're like, well, tell us French. And so I thought it would be great to have this conversation with you because we are different and yet we get along, right? So it is possible for people to be in relationship with each other and still have opposing politics and be able to build together in the midst of that opposition. And so I wanted to have you say something about that. But first, let me get low in here. Even in the Electoral College, there are 538 electors, and 50% plus 1 equals 270. Oh, okay. So he's talking about the numbers game in politics. And so I wanted to see if you just, first of all, before I'm going to let you say whatever you want to say, but do you have any response to that? This idea that when people find out that they are different politically, that it seems to break down the relationship.
But I think when it comes to African Americans or people of color, we allow our emotions to get too involved with the political process. And if there's something that someone has done, we are slow to forgive them or accept them for something they did. If a Republican voted the wrong way on one issue, we use that to cover everything to disqualify that Republican from being approved by us. And we have to understand the political process with the two-party system. You're going to have people that vote for things, and sometimes you have to understand that in a bill that someone is voting for, in the fine print, there are some things that's good for America. But it's not the topic of the bill. So oftentimes people will vote for the bill in order for these underlying things to come into play to serve the American people, and try to disregard the impact that the title of the bill would have on people. So, yeah, French Hill I consider him a friend. I haven't had a chance, once they changed the boundaries, he's not that represented in the African American areas of Pulaski County. So I had not had him on. He does not campaign heavily in the areas that he used to. And I just haven't had a chance to catch up with him to talk. But it does bother me that he is quiet on some issues. And it just blows me away, the number of elected officials that look the other way at all of the nonsense that the president-elect has done and is doing and planning to do that could gravely impact the democratic process in this country.
I think that you're talking to us as if we are very literate in our civic engagement.
Yeah.
And so you're talking to us about the bills and how they are named something intentionally, but then once you get into the minutia of the bill, there are other things that come out. I'm not sure that everyone is even there yet. I feel like the people that I want to address are people that have not really done the work. They just hear the word Republican and associate it with whiteness. They hear the word Democrat, they associate it with blackness. Mm-hmm. And then when they find out that you are a white Democrat or a black Republican, now their whole worldview of you changes. Yeah. And it affects, because I've been in conversations where people have already been in business relationships with folks, find out their political affiliations, and now they are ready to sever their business ties. Now, you've been in a relationship with the person for 2 years, and now just because you learn, because of this election, you learn and you no longer want to be in relationship with them. And so this idea that my relationship, that in order for us to be able to build together, we have to agree on, I don't want to say everything in this case, we have to agree politically, that I think that is hurting us. And I'm also a victim of this, because sometimes when I hear a person, a black person in particular, and they start talking about they voted for Trump, it makes me question their morals. And then I'm like, well, wait a minute, like, is that fair? And so I wanted to make sure that I brought that out. So I understand what you're saying about what happens with the bills, but talk, make it plain for us, Pat. Hold on, we got low on here again. Quiet on the George Floyd policing. Quiet on the George Floyd policing bill or the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. Is he talking about French Hill?
Probably.
Yeah. But you said that you disagree with French Hill on some stuff, but I don't believe you disagree on your show. Seems like when you're on your show with French Hill, y'all are, like, it's a very,
when he's on the show.
Yeah, when he's on your show. It seems like a very friendly conversation. It seems like you're very supportive of him, and that you are, I don't necessarily think that you're actually encouraging us to be supportive, but you're just making it plain that, you're pretty much okay with him. And so to hear you say now that you're like, you don't appreciate some of the things that he's done, and then Lowe lifts these things up, do you have a response to that about how friendly y'all are on your show?
Well, first of all, my show's platform, I do not like to be aggressive or unfriendly to my guests. So when I have someone on, I want them to feel welcome, and I want them to express what they really want my audience to hear, So it's not likely that I've invited the governor. Of course, she is not showing up. I've seen her in person. She said she was coming, but that hasn't happened.
Stay on.
I would probably question her about certain things, but as it related to, like for instance with French Hill, he had been doing work in our community and helping small business people with his bank, helping partnership with Mother Abrams with some community projects long before he became congressman. So that's the background that I have on him, that he's not doing it for political reasons. He's doing it from the sake of service. And so that's my take on that. But I do get side-eyed, if you will, when I let people know I'm Republican, even though for the last probably 8 years, I have softened my pledge to the party. I have not voted Republican probably in 10 years or better, and I had the last Republican I voted for that I really liked was Asa Hutchinson. And so I do not, a lot of times I say that I'm Republican, as Colin Powell used to say, just to piss him off, because I do not get the same welcome attention from the Arkansas Republican Party as I did the Illinois Republican Party. So that it's a big difference. So I just, want to be associated with them so they don't think that they are just out there without this voice, saying whatever I want to say about them. And they do monitor my show, and they don't always like what I say. So that's why they don't invite me to any of the events.
Yeah, well, it's interesting that you say that you softened your pledge to the Republican Party because you have voted a different way for the last 10 years. And I think that goes back to the conversation that I'm offering, is that we have to get to know a person. Like, we don't really know a lot of times, and maybe this happens to you, and I'm not sure, but it happens to me, that because of this show, people think they know me. They think that they know everything about me. They think that they've already got me figured out. They've already got me pegged. They've already, they know who Denise is. And it's interesting because you're listening to me on Community Voices for an hour a week, right? And we're talking about something that's very curated. So I've chosen what I want to talk about. I've chosen the person. So this is a very put together show, which means that it's only a part of what I want to talk about on this particular day. Cannot possibly encompass the whole of who I am, right? Exactly. And so people don't know that about you until they get into conversation with you, and they can't get into conversation with you until they're in relationship with you, and they can't get into relationship with you if just because you are Republican or you've announced that you're Republican, they say, oh, I don't want to fool with Pat because she's Republican.
Mm-hmm. And she support, and the interesting thing is that they will accuse you. The worst thing there is about the Republican Party, if you say you're a Republican, that's what they associate you with. Mm-hmm. If I say that I'm Republican, oh, you voted for Trump. Mm-hmm. Not no, but no. So, and of course, Toney has been with me on my show with French. No, you've had French on
Yeah,
my
I've
show.
had French on, and I've been on the show with you.
Yeah, and with Asa, I've also.
But both of y'all are the quote unquote friendly type. To me, let me just make sure I'm clear on this. I don't think that just because you challenge a person's views, or just because you challenge a person's voting record, or just because you challenge a person's service or not service in the political field means that you're unfriendly. Let me just make sure that I say that. Mm-hmm. But both of you are, the way that I experienced you is what I just said about you, Pat, is that it's a very accommodating show to the guest, and you just said that's important to you. And so for both of you, so like here's Lo saying, I don't care if you are Republican, Democrat, or Independent, what service is provided to those who need the service the most. So if you have a French Hill in your presence, and you know that he has been quiet on the George Floyd policing bill or the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, this would be the perfect opportunity to say, hey, the people want to hear, like the people want to do that. And so for us to fail to do that because we want to be friendly, then that becomes a concern. And then it also does the same thing that we're talking about Democrat and Republican. And so what they'll do is, so this happens to me all the time. And so a show that's accommodating to the guest will be like, oh, that's great. Look at how they are so nice. But look at Denise, she over here. So it also creates a division between the kinds of shows that we offer on the show. Now, don't get me wrong, it doesn't bother me, but I'm saying that's what people do. They take just a perception of what is happening, and then they make a judgment behind it, and then they allow that judgment to taint the relationship.
And I think it goes back to something you said, Denise, about conversation, about the conversation about knowing someone. It's some things, like the first time I had French Hill on my show, and there were some things I challenged him about. He was not going to give an answer. Yeah. He was not going to say anything, because a lot of times, especially with politicians, they realize I'm on the air. Mm-hmm. People are listening. if I say something, because politicians what they worry about is that vote. Who's going to vote for me? Who's going to support me?
Mhm.
But the one thing I found out that was even better, I think, as I addressed other people, I got in conversations with other people, is once I got off the air with French Hill, we sat in the office and we talked for 2 hours.
Mhm.
In that 2 hours, you can challenge him about some things, and he will tell you.
Yeah.
You know, he will come straight
Off the air.
and because now the only place he can be held accountable to is the conversation that me and him are having.
Exactly. So how does that help the people?
But in that conversation, there's things that you can take from the conversation and you can say, okay, so now when I go out and talk to people, I can tell them this, I can tell them that.
But you're telling them hearsay. You're telling them what you said French Hill said, and not what French Hill said. So even if French Hill isn't, hold on just a minute. Even if French Hill isn't going to directly answer the question itself is powerful. Right? Even if he isn't going to give the answer that you want him to give, the fact that he doesn't answer is powerful for the people to realize. Because people they recognize when he's skirting the issue, or not just him. This is not about French Hill. This is about anybody. But people recognize when folks are skirting the issue. People recognize when you didn't answer the question. So it's just as powerful a conversation for what people don't say as when they do say something.
Yeah, but then people will get this perception, this person skirted the question. So,
that's not a perception. That's what he did.
Okay, so people say, okay, this person skirted the question, but if they would find a way to they will get in a conversation with that person, then they can find the answer that they were looking for, or they can find the answer they want. Because the one thing that
to me that defeats the issue. Like if we have a show and we have a platform that's 100,000 watts locally, and then it's a global platform, look how many people we are reaching in this moment. To then say, well, we need all of y'all to try to figure out how to have an individual relationship, an individual conversation for you to get the answers, then what's the point of us being here to have this platform that says, no, in one conversation with this one person, all of us can hear what is being said or what is not being said. Hold on, let me get this comment in. This is Deidre. I believe that the term Republican used to mean the removal of social services from the agenda. Now Republican means the removal of the rules. The rules referred to are those that will have a disparate impact on Black folk. This is why I question the intellect of Black folk that say they voted for Trump. Let me just read that again. I believe that the term Republican used to mean the removal of social services from the agenda. Now Republican means the removal of the rules. The rules referred to are those that will have a disparate impact on Black folk. This is why I question the intellect of Black folk that say they voted for Trump. And I know, Pat, you already said that you did not vote for Trump, so this would not be for you. But do you have a response to what she's saying about what it means to be Republican and how it seems to be a shift in the mission and purpose of Republicans? Do you have a response to that?
Historically, there's been a shift because at one point, right after the Emancipation Proclamation, it was just as rare to find a Black Democrat as it is now to find Black Republican, because they switched those people that were Democrats, the white nationalists and all of them. Once you started electing Black officials within the Democratic Party, they switched their allegiance and became Republican. And so now the entire platform of the Republican Party is what the Democratic Party started out to be. So that is, but you have to take an intelligent approach to looking at the individual more so than the party.
Or looking at the platform of the person, right? Like getting to know what they really stand for. I skipped this comment. Let me go back and get it. Because this goes back to what Toney said. So Lo says those private conversations don't help the voting population at large. Those, because you were saying that if a person gets to talk to French Hill by himself, then they'll get some information that they didn't have. And so he's saying those private conversations don't help the voting population at large. Okay, so then if that's the case, that So for me, when I think about this two-party system, and I do know that there are other parties, sometimes we do a disservice by saying Democrat and Republican, because there are people who are independent. There are more than just like there's a Tea Party. There are other parties, but we only focus on Democrat and Republican. But when we say that the vision and the mission and the purpose of the parties has changed, I feel like for me, Democrat or Republican is two sides of the same coin. I personally feel that way, because when we have a system that says I can run on a Democratic ticket, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I can run as a Democrat, I can get into office as a Democrat, and the way that I got into office was that the constituency that voted for me voted because I was Democrat, because they believed in my Democratic agenda, and then I can get into office and then switch to the Republican Party without having to go back and be reelected by the new constituency that I now represent. Then how is that not like what even difference does it make what name you use, whether it's Democrat or Republican? So to me, I'm not sure, or maybe I'm asking you the question, like, is there much difference between Democrat and Republican?
Well, you don't have a lot of people that do that, but it has happened. Sometimes they do it deliberately just to be elected. Sometimes they do it because once they're elected, the platform, the agenda of the party that they came in on changes somebody in there that they disagree with. So that causes them to change parties. But my opinion personally is, well, just like for me saying that for years that I'm Republican here in Arkansas, and 99 times out of 100, I've always voted Democrat. But in Illinois,
so basically, it's like a strategy. To me, it sounds like you're saying to declare a party could be a political strategy, right?
Yeah.
So it's not. So then, so Deidre says no. There's not a big difference between Republicans and Democrats. They are friends. And so my brother, I want to make sure that I say this loudly and proudly. My older brother, Dr. Derek Donnell, he just won a seat on the city board in Florida. My brother ran as a Republican because he has been a Republican for quite some time, and he is he was city director. He was on the board before, and then I guess you have to get off before a certain time, and then he was able to run again. But he ran for mayor, and he did not win. The only Black Republican on the ticket, and every Republican on the ticket won except him with his Black self. Okay, let's be clear about this. And then he did win on the Republican ticket here, and so that's why it's so important for me to say that I get it when you say, well, some Black people are Republicans. I got Republicans in my family, and I have registered as a Republican because it was a political strategy for the work that I was doing. I needed to be in a Republican room. They would not allow me in the room as a Democrat, so I changed my party to Republican. Now I'm in the room having the conversations that I need to have for the people that I'm trying to serve who were Black. And so again, if you're not having the conversations about what motivates a person, and my mother was a Republican, and she was a Republican for a lot of reasons. Well, first of all, because what you said about most Black people were Republican to begin with, and she never switched. But she was also able to go to the gubernatorial addresses. We were able to travel. She was on these national councils. She was giving us experiences as children that we would not have had if she were not Republican. So it worked out in all of our favor because there were benefits to her being in the Republican Party. Does that mean she would vote for every Republican? Absolutely not. And so this idea that just because you label a person Democrat or Republican, that means you know who they are or you know what they're talking about is a problem. But for me, it's only a problem until you start talking about Trump. And this goes back to what Deidre said. But we know what he has not been
a Republican. He is not a Republican.
He started out as a Democrat.
As a matter of fact, he said, if I wanted to be president, I would change to the Republican Party. Did he not say that?
Yeah, they say he didn't say that, but they got him on.
We can roll the tape.
Yeah, they got him on video saying that.
Hold on just a minute. We got a caller. Caller, you're live on the air. Wait. Caller, you're live on the air at KABF 88.3 FM. This is Community Voices. Thanks for calling. Caller? Oh, call back, call. I don't know what happened to you.
Yeah, I think one thing that this shift, and I agree, once you going back to what you were talking about, Denise, with your mother, your team being part of the Republican Party, some of the benefits that it afforded all of you to see certain things. That now there's a shift, and most people aren't voting on, we think they're voting on platforms, or we think they're voting on agendas, but they're voting on loyalty. That's what it comes down to. I never forget, Donald Trump said something when he was running the first time. And he said he was in Detroit with Ben Carson, and he was with in a group with black people, and he said, "What has the Democratic Party did for you?" And he said, "They did nothing." He said, "Why not vote for me?" And to me, it became an issue of loyalty.
Loyalty to what? How you gonna be loyal to what Donald Trump is saying?
No. Yeah, loyalty to Trump or loyalty to a certain party. Yeah. And that's why when you hear people say, "Oh, I just went into the ballot box and I just voted everything blue or everything red," it's not that you're voting for that candidate. It's not that you're voting for that platform, but you're voting for the loyalty of the party.
Well, again, that doesn't work in your case because we just said that Trump wasn't even a Republican, so he can't be talking about being loyal to if he's now running as a Republican. So that's a little bit problematic. But here's what Deidre says in response to what you all just said. I never cared who was red or blue. It became an issue when it came to Trump. I never cared whether it was red or blue. It became an issue when it came to Trump. And that's what I'm saying as part of this conversation is now when you're talking about Republican, in the face of the Republican Party is Donald Trump. Then you say, well, I question your morals. I'm questioning what you're thinking. I'm questioning how you feel, how you're understanding what you said earlier, Pat, about what's the impact going to be for this person that's now in office. What's the impact on your life? Are you thinking about that? Yes, I do know that people vote for the party. I do know that people vote for one issue. Some people vote just because you agree with abortion or just because you don't agree. I know that they're single issue people. But at this point, when you say things have shifted, we're talking about a personality. We're talking about a culture that's being personified in the body that's being embodied by Donald Trump. So I don't think people were voting for loyalty to the Democratic Party. I don't think they were voting for loyalty
to Trump.
No, they were voting for loyalty to whiteness. That's what I believe, because I don't believe I believe there are several Republicans that don't agree with Donald Trump. I believe there are several Republicans that don't appreciate his antics and don't appreciate the kinds of things that he's doing. But because he is continuing to lift up whiteness, continuing to support the system of white inhumanity, that's what they're voting for. I believe that 100%. And if it was somebody else, not Trump, that was doing it, they would vote for that person. So here's what Lo says: personality versus issues. Seems as if elections are a popularity contest. Personality versus issues. Seems as if elections are a popularity contest. That's what Lo says.
Well, a lot of times, everybody has a different reason for how and why they vote. Sometimes it's popularity, sometimes it's money, sometimes it's issues, and sometimes it's party. It's not always the same thing as that drives a person to the poll. It's all different issues. And
I agree with that.
The fact that someone can pick one issue that they support to vote for a person that has 100 other negative issues, I do not understand that at all.
So this is where you're talking about we have to be intelligent with our vote, because again, I'm concerned about what Trump represents, because I don't think that you said earlier that he's not a Republican. He ran on a Republican ticket, and so you don't represent that. So what do you represent? And I feel like the majority of the people who voted for him, especially Black folks, he represents power to so many people. Because I remember when he first started running, he started saying all these crass and crude things. What I heard people say was that they were attracted to him because finally somebody has the cojones. Finally, somebody has the guts. Finally, somebody has the courage. Finally, somebody to say the things that he's been saying. We've been waiting all this time because many people think that politicians are what you all just said about French Hill. We're going to say what we have to say when too many people are listening. But then when I get you by yourself, then I'm going to be real with you. And people recognize the hypocrisy of that. If you're going to be a politician, be real wherever you are. And when people are not that, and then here comes Donald Trump being what people think are real, a lot of people across demographics, across gender, found that to be attractive, right?
Yeah, and a lot of it had to do with his persona as being wealthy and a successful business person. It was only after that you find out that he wasn't. But for me, I am an official election denier. If he can deny 2020 election for 4 years, I don't see why the entire Democratic
I don't see why either. Didn't say a word. They didn't say a word.
And you know that with all the things that was going on, I cannot see any way.
And if Kamala had won, do you think that they would be? Do you not think that they would have been
right now?
Oh yeah. But see, I think that the Democratic leadership should be investigating this, looking into it. Something happened.
You know what? I don't think the Democratic leadership is going to do anything because I feel like the Democrats are victims of what we were just talking about. You don't have the guts to stand up and challenge. You don't have the guts to say what needs to be said. You don't have the guts to put the truth on the table and deal with whatever the consequences and the fallouts are. And that's what I think has happened, especially when the Democrats were running the Congress not too long ago. We so busy trying to be across the aisle and do this nice and be friendly that we didn't get the things done that we need to get done. And so had it been the Republican ticket, I bet you they would have opened their mouth and said something and would not have stopped until they got whatever it is that they wanted.
It is frightening for me to see how immediately all of the commentators, the media was just rolling over. Oh, he won, and she should have did this, and she should have done this, and what she didn't do, and they are still bringing that out instead of saying we need to look at how many ways this election could have been manipulated.
Absolutely. Let me get this caller. Caller, you're live on the air, KABF 88.3 FM. I don't know what's happening. Call me back, caller.
But I will say this, and Pat mentioned this. When the Republican Party flipped, it became more, when the Democratic Party became the Republican Party coming out the 60s, especially after 1964 with all the Civil Rights, Voting Rights Act, and all those Dixiecrats now became Republican. It was the same flip.
Hold on just a minute, Tony. Let me see if I can get this caller. Caller, you're live on the air, KABF 88.3 FM. Thanks for calling. Caller? I hear something.
Hello?
We can't hear you, caller. Try again, caller, please. Go ahead, Tony. You said the flip.
And so when Obama became president in 2008, that's when, because Arkansas was all Democratic.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of southern states that were Democratic states. When Obama won, that's when the Tea Party started to come up. And whiteness, that's what the Tea Party was about. Whiteness and white empowerment. And so when Donald Trump decided to run, he started speaking to that. And you're right, Denise. He became a voice of what white society wanted to say, wanted to act, and wanted to do. And they embraced him. And now the Republican Party isn't a party, it's Trump.
Right, and that's what Lowe said about popularity and personality. And so then to your point, Pat, about how the Democrats are not responding to the election denier part of this, how did Starlink, Elon's internet, become the platform for the voting machine?
Exactly.
Okay, how did Starlink, Elon Musk's internet, become the platform for the voting machines? Because at first Elon wasn't even a Trump fan, right?
Yes.
And so then they have this conversation. Now he's a Trump fan. He's basically buying people's votes, and then his internet becomes the platform. These are the conversations we need to have.
And that's what needs to be investigated, because I think between Elon Musk and Putin, that's how Trump won.
I wouldn't be surprised. We have Mayor Lisa Hicks Gilbert. The current proposed cabinet picks should tell us a lot about the parties and what they stand for and who they represent. Your actions outweigh your words, because Trump is already telling us he's already picking these people. He's already having these conversations, and who these people are is what Mayor Hicks Gilbert is reminding us of. You got to pay attention. Pay attention to the people. Do your work. Do your homework. Learn about their past. Learn about their voting record. Learn about the fact that they haven't even been in politics, many of them. And here's Kenyon Lowe says, guts or are they complicit in these matters? So I said something about people don't have, he's talking about the Democrats.
Yeah.
Is it that they don't have guts, or is it that they are complicit?
Yeah.
Well, if you are a politician and you have to compromise so much, sometimes you compromise too much and you become complicit. I can see how that could happen easily. And so Deidre says to you, Pat, you are correct. Like, we need to be investigating this. We need to be paying attention to, she said probably you're correct about the fact that Putin has something to do with this. Elon Musk has something to do with the fact that Donald Trump won. And then Deidre says to Lo, they are all friends. And I think that that's part of what I understand politics. Well, when I first understood my orientation into politics is that you were supposed to be able to work across the aisles. That the two of you would come together, and the art of negotiation is when both parties walk away feeling that they've won something. Both parties feeling like they've won, even though they've had to compromise. But in this case, and in this day and age, it doesn't seem like that's what it's about, compromise, because of the amount of money that is now involved in politics. It's who can you buy? It's about the lobbyists. It's about the money. It's about the power, who we think has the seat of power. And so all of that, to me, compromises the process. And it does make me look at politicians and be like, are you complicit? Are y'all friends? Are y'all really doing the work? Like, what's really happening up there? Because it's hard for us to see as the people when the bills get passed.
Well, I question the change in the Federal Election Commission as it relates to contributions to election, because there was a time when it was limited. Mm-hmm. Now, you can do millions of dollars to somebody's campaign or against somebody, and it's okay. I don't even understand how you can use campaign funds for personal legal expenses. This type of thing, I said I was going to do some research on it as to when did it change. I think that Scott Hamilton was saying it was during the Bush administration when it changed.
Didn't it change around the time that they made corporations people?
Yeah, it changed during. In fact, I think it was more the Clinton. Well, no, you're right. It was the second Bush Jr.
Yeah.
When the Supreme Court ruled that a corporation can be a person, and that because it's a person, that's when they said that now you can contribute as much as you want to. Here's the thing that's really crazy, is that's when all the PACs came up, the political action PACs.
And these super PACs.
Yeah, that are not tied, that they're independent organizations and not tied to the candidate, even though you can give money to a candidate.
Millions of dollars.
And then you can connect the dots, because we are able to connect the dots just like we did with Elon Musk's internet. It's not hard, and that's another thing. So Deidre says it ain't no rules, especially
right.
There aren't any.
There's no rules anymore. It's a wide open game, and it's about who can. Because you look at Vice President Harris, she raised more money than any candidate
in
ever.
History. Over $1 billion. And now they're saying because of how that was spent, she can't never run again in some kind of crazy.
Well, of course they're going to say that about her her as a Black competent woman running for office, as opposed to a convicted criminal who won the seat of president. Right? He won the seat, and then they are now saying that they're not going to. He's not going to have to worry about the election. Remember they dropped the charges. Scott dropped the charges about like all of these things.
The hush money thing, all of them. That is nonsense.
So you're going to continue now to debase this Black woman who is a Democrat, who ran on the Democratic ticket. You're going to continue to debase her and tell her what she can and cannot do, continue to dehumanize her political aspirations. But while at the same time, this man who embodies whiteness, you are doing everything you possibly can to make his road straight. You are making it wide and straight to get to do whatever he wants to do. And I don't think it's about being Republican. I don't think it's about being Democrat. I think it's about whiteness. And that is what I'm going to continue to say. And then I'm going to continue to challenge Black folks. In the face of powers of whiteness, what do? We get together and we build with the people who want to build. And so even if the person says they're Republican and they Black, if they have the mindset to build the way we have built as a heritage, as a collective of Black folks, then that's what we need to do. Changes. What did Tupac say? Change needs to come, and we need to be about it. And that's what we're leaving you with right here at Community Voices. We have been live at KABF 88.3 FM. Your girl Lola is right here ready to come in with 2 hours of jazz that can continue to feed your soul as you have these conversations with yourself and with others. Thank you so much for joining us, Pat. I hope this happens again. We'll see y'all as soon as possible. And I'm going to leave y'all with Sean Montero with Clark Terry singing The Nearness of You. See y'all later.
That was fun.